Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate you taking a little bit of time out of your lunch hour. If you're joining us in the future on YouTube, I hope that you are cozy and comfortable and taking the time that you need to catch up on all of the recordings here in the Fenn Library. For those of us here in the room, please feel free to enjoy your lunch and make yourselves as comfortable and uh, relaxed as possible for a exciting conversation about fraud and consumer protection and how scammers target different generations. Before we jump into the learning, I do want to take just a minute to introduce the Financial Empowerment Network for folks who are new to us. By the way, I'm Ryan Davis. I'm sure that you've gotten emails from me recently, and I appreciate everyone taking some time out of their day to join us. Just as a quick heads up, this workshop is being recorded. As I mentioned earlier, all of our workshops get posted to YouTube and to our website, usually within the week, maybe the following Monday. Please take a minute to introduce yourself in the chat. To view closed captions, please enable them on your end. As we're going, please utilize the chat feature, add your questions, comments, concerns, quandaries, and conundrums into the chat, and we will do our best to address them as we have time. This is a lunch and learn, so we will be jumping through our conversation within the next 45 minutes. If you're unfamiliar with the Financial Empowerment Network, please take a minute and bounce around our website, fenwad.org. We envision communities where low and moderate income individuals and families are able to achieve financial well-being. We do this through partnerships that support access to affordable, effective, and relevant services, products, and other resources. One of the ways that we primarily do this is through webinars just like this, and also with partnerships and making friends in as many different areas as possible. So please feel free to reach out to me or to anyone here at Fenn to get connected with friends around the state of Washington and beyond. As I mentioned, we host workshops and other fun events. This QR code will take you to our events page where you will have access to all of our previous recordings as well as upcoming events. Please stay tuned next week for the third installment of Fraud and Consumer Protection. And after that, in August on the 20th, please join us for Building Bridges Between Banks and Communities, the Power of the CRA, the Community Reinvestment Act. It should be a very exciting conversation with some of our banking and financial institution friends. Please, there's more to say about Fenn, but we are on a tight agenda. So please take a minute and visit us at fenwad.org to learn more and to get connected with other things coming soon, including the 2024 Bank On Forum, which will be in Everett on October 24th and 25th. With that, I'm going to stop sharing so that I can see people and have the other part of my notes available for me to read. Oh, we have a joy. We are here to learn from Elena Huizar. Once again, I introduced Elena last week, and I will continue to do so because she is continuing to be awesome. Elena moved from Eastern Washington with her family to the Seattle area in 2014. She's been with the Office of the Attorney General for 16 years of public service, helping both consumers and business owners learn their rights and responsibilities under the Consumer Protection Act. She travels through the state to educate on scams, fraud prevention, and how to safely participate in an open market. Thank you, Elena, for being here. I'm also going to take some time to introduce our moderator for the Q&A section following our learning from Elena. John McKenney has served as the Financial Education Administrator for the Washington Office of the State Treasurer since November of 2021. John works to promote financial education in the Washington State K-12 public school system as a partner of the Financial Education Public-Private Partnership, otherwise known as FEP. Yes, absolutely. Big ups for FEP. He's also the vice president of the Jumpstart Coalition of Washington, a nonprofit coalition created to promote financial education in Washington State. John is also an active coalition planning member of the Financial Empowerment Network. That's us. Hi, everybody. And through other statewide partnerships, he regularly teaches several financial education topics to the public in-person, virtual, and hybrid workshops to folks around the state. He has a passion for teaching and working to make a difference in financial education, community development, and fighting against injustice. Thank you, John, in advance for moderating our Q&A section. Emails for both Elena and John are available on our website if you want to connect with them after this workshop, but I've already talked more than I want to. Elena, we are here to learn about how scammers target different generations. Please teach us things.
Right. Well, Ryan, thank you so much, and Ben, for having the Attorney General's office today, and me as the outreach person for the AG's office in consumer protection. And thank you, John, for moderating and checking out the chat later on. We encourage you to, if you have anything you want to add to the chat, or if you've been experiencing something you'd like to, maybe talk about a scam attempt that you've seen, that would be fantastic. You can pop that into the chat at any time, and we'll take a look at that as soon as we're done with the presentation. This is a lunch and learn, so it will go quickly. It will go, we will speed through it, but hopefully you'll take some information home with you today, and we will make the PowerPoint available for people to have that at a later date. I also wanted to introduce my colleague who happens to be on the call today, Andrew Gutzmer with the Attorney General's office, who assisted in putting together this presentation because we are of two different generations. I am Gen X, the greatest generation, so say Gen Xers, and then my colleague is considered a millennial. So I needed his input as well. Look at the millennials clapping. Woo-hoo! Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and we will go ahead and get started. Thank you again so much for having us today. I'm going to bring up my own notes, so just one moment. There we go. Okay, so we had the amazing idea to talk about scams and frauds in this Lunch and Learn series. We're going to go through this quickly, as I said, but one of the topics that we landed on was fraud prevention by generation. And so we wanted to talk about the generations and how scammers are targeting generations, but we always want to say that scams do not discriminate. They do not care what generation you are, even though we might. They don't care, but they do reach us in different ways. But just a little background on the Attorney General's office, whether you were with us last week, whether you're a new viewer this week, consumer protection is our job at the Attorney General's office, and we make every effort to do so to provide ethical, excellent, independent legal services to the state of Washington, protecting the rights of its people. We are composed of attorneys and professional staff, and we enforce the Consumer Protection Act, which is RCW 19.86, and other statutes under that to help keep Washington's marketplace free from unfair and deceptive practices. And the division does participate in we do participate in and investigate and file legal actions to stop these unfair and deceptive practices. And we also attempt to recover refunds for consumers. When a fraud happens, when there's a fraudulent activity happening, as in the, in a scam, it is difficult to recoup funds that people have given away. And last week we talked about the different ways, and and usually it's like cash. And so that is difficult to get back. We do attempt, but it's not always possible. So we wanted to talk about scams and scams across generations. And so scammers are always changing, updating their tactics. And while the internal structure of a scam does stay relatively consistent, they are always taking on new forms to try and trick more and more people. And last week, we talked about the 5 signs of a scam: that unsolicited contact, secrecy, asking for personal information. And so the foundation of a scam will be the same, but the way that they target us can be different. So as people become wiser and more aware of these, the scams do begin to shift and change, because they are attempting to find new ways to catch people off guard. So of course, there are also the generational questions to be considered, like what is likely to be successful when a scammer is targeting someone in their 70s, which could be something that is easily spotted by someone that is younger. So while some scams do work on older targets, they could be easy to spot for other targets. And so therefore a scammer is always using new tactics. So a scammer can make you feel threatened and in urgent need of assistance, no matter your age or background. And we say this a lot at the Attorney General's office: thinking that you're too savvy to be tricked is what every scammer banks upon. So now we're going to go through and define the generations. And Ryan and I were talking about this earlier too. So the first generation, or those born before 1946, they're called the silent generation, but it is becoming more prevalent to be called the builders. So the builders, again, born before 1946, is a generation that describes those that built much of the society that we know today. So this generation, as stated in the slide, has displayed their resilience through some very tough times in our history, like starting a life after the Depression, hearing stories about World War I, and living through World War II. So my parents were of the builder generation, and they were both of them were born right at the cusp. They were born in 44 and 45. So while usually referred to as the seniors of the community, they weren't always seniors. They were the generation that built the suburbs, institutions, infrastructure, and they continue to build in their own way to this day. Now, I will say that they are great upholders of a lot of values, and I will touch on that later on, in the presentation. It's very difficult for them to not answer the phone and even to not hang up. So a lot of the commitments that our society is built on, they're also a very understanding and adaptable generation. They are appreciative of younger generations growing up in a world that's so different to the one that they were shaped in. Now, that might not be the same sentiment for the baby boomers. I know that there's like a lot of, there's almost a feud between the boomers and the millennials. So the baby boomers were born between 1946 and 1964. And this generational label is derived from the baby boom that occurred post-World War II. And as you can see on the slide, fertility rate was, the average was 3.5 babies per woman in our nation. So this really resulted in a rise of population, a boom in the economy, housing, construction, and so infrastructure that was to cater this population that almost doubled in their early years. So this generation, this empowered generation, shaped society and the social context. So they pushed back on political decisions, participated in protests, saw the rise of feminism, had a desire for equality. They were also the social justice warriors of their time. And the social enterprise movement was born by these baby boomers. They brought about a massive cultural change, social change, economic change, and they continue to have impacts in society today. So as a high net worth generation, they are often described as the bank of mom and dad. And because they help build the economy, they basically lend a hand to. Now, Gen X, which is my generation, describes those that were born between 1965 and 1979. And this generation, they had a mantra of anti-establishment, a mindset of pushing back on authority figures. Not me, I didn't do that. But we did have a walkout when I was in middle school that were protesting the supposed rumor of us having to have school uniforms, and a bunch of people walked out. I was too scared to walk out. They got suspended. So I was not a protester. But like the baby boomers, many got onto property ownership bandwagon at a younger age than the generation that comes after us. So, excuse me, until COVID-19, Generation X did benefit from a time of economic prosperity. They experienced and embraced small business opportunities, entrepreneurial opportunities. They have done well through this era, Gen X, despite the angst that they experienced early on. Yes, we were in so much pain. And now they're doing things differently than the generations before. They've established themselves economically. Their net worth has accelerated since the 90s. And Gen X does encompass those that were born in the 60s and 70s, shifting societal changes, cultural changes after World War II. Many more women were working. Technology was rapidly changing. The divorce rate was on the rise. Gen X is a term symbolizing like an unknown variable or a desire to not be defined. As stated in the slide, we're also known as the MTV generation, the latchkey generation, and the forgotten generation. As I mentioned before, there's kind of a feud between the boomers and the millennials, and they pretty much forget about Gen X. And now millennials. They're otherwise known, Gen Y is otherwise known as the millennials, who were born between 1980 and 1994. And they are known a lot for their love of, and I didn't know this, but this was in one of the articles that I reviewed, smashed avo. Do you guys know what that is? Smashed avocado. Yeah, I could see people, yeah, agreeing in the cameras. Specialty coffee, traveling abroad. But it should be recognized that the accelerating house prices and flat wage growth are a lot of the reasons why this generation has been locked out of the housing market. So all generations are shaped by events, experiences, political climate. This creates a profound difference in Gen X Gen Y. 2011, September 11 happened, 2001, the tragic event took place when they were in their formative years, and a lot of the rest of the decade, and really shaped the millennials' global outlook. So right now, this generation is entering parent and family stage as they're moving into their 30s and 40s, and Gen Y is they're the children of the baby boomers, so I can see why there's a feud. And so they grew up with the internet, smartphones, they're digital natives. So it says that in the articles that I read, it says that over half of the amount of millennials have posted a selfie on the internet. It is the largest demographic with more than 80 million people falling into this age range. Gen Z, which are my kids. Gen Z describes those that are born between 1995 and 2009. It makes up 20% of the US population, and they were shaped in the COVID-19 era. This generation has learned that economy can have upsets. Economically and socially, they have adapted, become more conservative as a result of that, but it also means that they are more resilient. They focus on education, recognize the importance of it in their foundational years. They know that they're in a competitive environment. They need to upskill, retrain. They can't rely on job for life stability, nor do they want to, is my understanding. And lifelong learning is the mindset. So this generation is conscious that they need to work hard to achieve the things that they want in their life. And it might go against some of the stereotypes that people have about young people, but Gen Z volunteers at a higher rate than average other age groups, and they're more likely to work for a nonprofit. They focus on values, fulfillment. They want to be fulfilled and making a difference with their life, and that matters more than just what they can earn at the same time. So they are financially conservative. Many are attempting to save for a home, and they want a place of their own. And but Gen Z also faces unprecedented behavioral health crisis. 25% report feeling anxious due to stressors like global unrest, financial crisis, global warming, educational interruptions due to COVID-19. But they're generally open-minded about receiving help from mental health experts. And 49% of US Gen Zs identify as non-white. And Generation Alpha, which I don't have any Generation Alpha in my family. They were born in 2010 and 2014. Well, in my immediate family, I do have nieces and nephews that are still like 14. And so the reason that they're named Generation Alpha is not because we're returning to the old, but it's the start of something new. And so these are the children of millennials. There is a great sense of Generation Alpha being shaped for the new millennium. The Alpha is the first generation to be fully born in the 21st century and to be shaped by this new era. So the year that they began being born in 2010, Instagram was launched, the iPad became available. So it says a lot about the technological time that has shaped them. In COVID-19, there was the increasing globalization and connectivity and empowerment that they have, also says a lot about them. Looking at their context reminds us that, we shouldn't expect them to be like other generations that we have seen in the past, but to recognize that it's a whole new landscape that they have been born into and that is shaping them. They are a growing generation that a lot of people haven't heard of, Generation Alpha, and within the next few years, they will outnumber baby boomers, and they will live into the 22nd century. So while they are the youngest generation, they have a brand influence, purchasing power beyond their years. They shape the social media landscape. They are popular cultural influencers, emerging consumers. By the end of the 2020s, they're going to be moving into the adulthood, the workforce, household formation, ready or not. So they will stay in education longer, start their earning years later. They're most likely to stay at home with their parents even longer than Gen Z. The role of the parents, therefore, will span a longer age range, with many of Gen Alpha likely to be living at home into their late 20s. So let's take a look at reports and losses by these age groups. So a lot of the data that we have today is courtesy from the Federal Trade Commission, which utilizes data from their own scam reports and then pulls scam reporting from state government entities and consumer watchdog groups across the country. All of our numbers are displayed from that. They are from 2023, and they do reflect a broad spectrum of sources. So we have a breakdown of scam reports and total dollars lost that are split by age group. So just to mention some interesting points. So while the number for reports for those in their 30s is very close to the amount of reports of people in their 60s, the amount of money lost by those groups has a significant difference, over $160 million more in 2023, meaning that while scammers will target anyone and everyone, they're most likely to have the biggest monetary gain when they're targeting a person in their 60s. If you look at the middle rows, you will see that people in their 40s and 50s report fewer scams and yet lose a similar amount of money to the folks in their 30s. So this kind of creates the question, are scammers targeting those age groups less, or are those folks in those age groups less likely to report? And again, that's that forgotten generation, right? Like maybe they just don't want to say anything and they want to try to fix it on their own and they're not reporting. But to give you a better idea of maybe how we can answer this question, on our next slide, we have who speaks out. There's a breakdown of scam reports over the median money lost in a scam. And one of the hardest hurdles that we face as a law enforcement agency and consumer safety agencies is the likelihood or the unlikelihood of someone reporting that they've fallen for a scam. So after a scam, the targets do feel a lot of shame, they feel embarrassment, and sometimes they're either encouraged by the scammer to keep it a secret, or out of their own insecurity will outright refuse to admit that they've fallen for a fraudster. One of the trends that we see most when we're looking across age groups is that the younger targets tend to lose less money. They give less money to scammers, but they are far more likely to report when they've lost money. And older targets are pretty much the opposite. They're likely to lose more, and they are far less likely to report that they've been a victim of a scam or they've lost money. So this is the kind of information that forms our work, especially when we're speaking to the public. When we speak to younger audiences, we want to encourage them to reach out to older relatives about scammers and work to take away that stigma and the shame. And when we speak to older audiences, we want to highlight this information so that they know that they're not in isolation, they're not alone in being a target for scammers. More reporting and shared awareness is the best possible effort to beat the scammers. So building that awareness through focus on age groups encourages another question. What scams work on young people and what works on older people? And again, the information that we have for you is courtesy of the Federal Trade Commission, so you can check out that information at a later date if you want to look at it a little closer. So I'm going to go through scams by age group. And for a few select age groups, we are looking here at the common scam categories, payment methods, contact methods for each group. And again, we're very grateful for the FTC and their infographics. For those under the age of 19 and under, which basically is Gen Alpha, we see a familiar scam category: online shopping, people impersonating businesses, investment scams. For payment, the number one method is peer-to-peer payment apps. For example, Venmo, PayPal, Zelle, Cash App, and others. And so when we present to younger groups, we urge them to practice extreme caution when sending money on these apps. We understand, of course, that it's easy, convenient, but it's also easy for anyone to open an account with just about any name. So scammers can spoof names, phone numbers, emails. They can find pictures from social media. They can make a profile on one of these apps to look very convincing to friends and family. Or they can pull as many details about a business or an investment app and then make a convincing fake account. Then all they need to do is find the scam that works, and they have a convincing place for you to send your money. Further, this age group is most likely to be scammed through social media and by text. Not surprising, as social media continues to grow and take over as many other aspects of global communication. With decades of scammers making phone calls behind us, this generation is at least wary enough to not answer unknown calls. Of course, just as anyone can say that they can be anyone on the phone, that can be said for the same as, a media user. The same kind of false urgency that a scammer uses on the phone to force you into acting can be deployed via social media or text. And it's also worth noting that romance scams is in this age group's most common scam categories, which is similar to older groups. When we move up just 10 years, we see romance scams is replaced by government imposter scams, though otherwise the categories and payment methods stay largely the same. In contact methods, we do see an increased presence of false websites, dating apps, and scams that are sent via email. If we jump all the way to people in their 60s, romance scams are back, but the payment and contact methods look very different. So here, credit cards are number one. So while older scam targets may be less likely to use a payment app, they can still get caught handing out their credit card info to a bogus website. In contacts, we see social media as number one, but phone calls are now much more present. And I did include for the, let me complete 70 to 79. So in just another 10 years, we've added tech support scams to our list. Credit cards are joined by gift cards as a common payment method, and social media has been replaced by phone calls as a number one contact method. So when we speak to older audiences, we are always discussing phone calls, nuisance phone calls, spam, scammers, telemarketers. And while the younger generations may have pivoted to a more aggressive call screening, we are still seeing many older individuals who are too anxious about missing that real call that they will continue to answer the scammers. You guys have no idea. Every time I give a presentation, we're like, well, what if somebody is calling me? It's an important phone call. That's the justification of always answering the call for the older generation. Older targets are more likely to be tricked into buying gift cards, thinking that that is a legitimate way to send money. And while younger targets may be less likely to do this, it is important to look at what methods are effective and what payment methods are common, since it's not always the same. So I did want to include, I wanted to show the difference, the big age group. Andy and I worked on creating this, but I did ask him to bring me 30 to 39, and you can see that credit cards and debit cards and payment apps are pretty prevalent in this age group. And how do they do this? Website, apps, social media is number one, and then text as well. And you can see that romance scams are not as prevalent on this one. Job scams and employment agency scams. Now, 40 to 49, we are looking again at credit card as number one, payment apps and debit card, website, social media being number one, and romance scams is back on the list of top losses. And then 50 to 59, again, romance scams is there, credit cards, debit cards, and then websites, but again, number one through the contact method is social media. So payment methods lost. Here we have a breakdown of scam reports by payment method and total money lost by that method in 2023. And while credit cards were the most common payment method, bank transfer and cryptocurrency both account for more than 5 times the amount of money lost. Now, this discrepancy can be explained by the kind of scams that target those payment methods. And while a bogus website or a business imposter will be trying to get the equivalent of a normal retail payment via, credit card or a debit card or a payment app, a scammer trying to access your bank account, most likely trying to, get you to give them access for safekeeping, will be aiming to get a whole lot more when they have that access. So cryptocurrency encourages large transfers because it is often used as a method for investment scams, and scammers telling you that they've got a way for you to boost up your money and retire early. They will try and get you to invest as much as possible. So generation scam examples. Now, Andy came up with this term scam examples. So this is the premise. Someone got a message on the Kara Art app, an offer, an opportunity windfall, but this can be gained by a small cash fee, and the cash fee is actual. The scam is the actual scam. Now, what are the red flags? Again, unsolicited contact, that windfall opportunity. They're turning it to cryptocurrency, and there is no upfront payment, as in them paying the artist or a contract. Now, you may ask, in the text, it says, what, or the message, NFT. Now, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this correctly, non-fungible tokens, but NFT is a digital asset that can come in the form of art, music, in-game items, videos, and more, and they're bought and sold online frequently with cryptocurrency, and that's what the message says. They are generally encoded with the same underlying software as many cryptos. Now, NFTs have been around since 2014, but they are most recently gaining notoriety because it is becoming a popular way to buy and sell digital artwork. So the market for NFTs was worth $41 billion in 2021 alone. And that value, that amount, is approaching the total value of the entire global fine art market. And this is a classic advance fee fraud. So it comes in a lot of forms: sweepstakes, lottery wins, grant approvals, but it asks for money in advance for you to get something in return. Here's another one. This is a phishing email. And so thankfully, the email server spam filter has helpfully identified it and deactivated its link, which is a nice feature that can be activated and adjusted in most mainstream email service apps. This one is from Gmail. But if the spam filter had not identified this, there's some other red flags. The immediate take action encourages urgency. The unknown sender, Erwin Wuckert. And for those who don't know, scammers use spoof emails with various fake names to try to bypass filters. So it's sent via an email, and there's that take action urgency, an unknown sender's name, and then there's a claim to offer info security. Smishing, the premise was sent via text, which is what SMS, phishing, together it becomes smishing. And it's formatted to look like an automatic alert. There is, you could see at the bottom, a thumbnail image added to add that validity. But again, the red flag is the urgency to avoid a late fee. They're sending this email to click on a link, and then toll services informs you how they're going to contact you. So while this example pertains to SunPass toll services, we have actually seen Washington consumers receive similar scam texts claiming to be from Good to Go, which services Washington's express lanes, tunnels, toll bridges. And Good to Go has made an effort to make this issue clear on their website, reminding consumers that they do not communicate via text with these types of alerts, and they will never provide notice of a late fee in this manner. Believe me, I know I've gotten letters, lots of them, lots of letters. So just to give you an example of, again, some social media posts, this is a scam narrative from a person who came to our office last year. It's an excellent example of why we encourage older and younger audiences to be extremely careful about what they post on social media. So this grieving mom posted to Facebook about her son's memorial, and a scammer, now with a direct link to the deceased Facebook page, their friends list and work history, found this easy way to contact the bereaved, and they offered them an opportunity for a grant. So a person who is not in stable housing, in need of money, clouded with grief, is extremely vulnerable. A too good to be true offer of hundreds of thousands of dollars as a way out. So a lot of targets for advanced fee fraud scams participate in the scam even after they notice the red flags, because they're more scared of missing that opportunity in case it is real than they are of being scammed in the first place. So I'll give you guys a second to read that. And at the very end, it says, needless to say, I got taken for $4,800. I reported this to the FTC, and because this woman continues to want more money from me to get my grant, I thought I should report it to you. They reported it to our office. Now, supposed government officials. In this example, also a narrative from our office received last year. It's extremely common right now. It describes a whirlwind of urgency, legal danger at every step. Scammers provide another person who can help. In truth, once the target has once the target has been brought in that first level of urgency, they can't fall through the next steps. So while this person was able to avoid the scam by mentioning the issue to her husband, a lot of Facebook targets are more careful about the Privacy Act and refuse to tell family for fear of implicating them. So scammers use this entirely fake veil of secrecy to encourage their targets to lie to anyone who tries to stop them and save them from giving over their money for safekeeping. Scammers will keep their targets on the phone and tell them that their bank may be implicated too. So they also have to lie to the bank tellers when they are attempting to take out money and they're being questioned. So for many of our attendees, we encourage one simple step which avoids all of this. When you get the security pop-up that appears on your screen, don't just assume that the number that they provide is the actual number for Microsoft. Take a breath, take a beat, go separately, independently, verify the right number to call. And if you call the number they provide, they are going to bend over backwards to tell you whatever you think you want to hear that will help you get out of this mess. They'll tell you that they're handling you off to federal agents, connecting you to local law enforcement, when they're more likely just handing the phone over to the person next to them, eager to build another layer of the scam. So, she's at the very end, she says, I was not involved in a felony or any criminal activity, which has yet to happen, even though I asked for proper documentation. It seems my case was being prepared to go before a judge. I finally could not bear this alone and spoke to my husband. Again, we encourage people to talk about it out loud. So how do you file a complaint? Well, we are the Consumer Resource Center. You can reach us at atg.wa.gov or call us Monday through Friday from 10 to 3 p.m., 1-800-551-4636, and file a complaint with our office. Please let us know what's going on. If you have heard of a scam or if you think you're going through a scam, let us know, because this also gives us information, especially in outreach services, to continue to give presentations that this is happening. It is real. People that you know, people that are your neighbors, people that are in your family, regardless of your generation, are being targeted. And so we have some resources for you. Again, these will be in the presentation slides that Ryan will have available for you: reporting fraud with a federal agency, the FBI, how to check your credit report, and then, of course, reporting to us. Again, our 1-800 number is on the screen and our website as well. So it is the Q&A time with only 4 minutes. I'm so sorry, but I'm going to stop the share. This was a lot of information. We are a small group, so hopefully I didn't completely overwhelm you guys and freak you out. I see somebody covering their mouth and like, oh my gosh. It's a lot of info. We appreciate you guys coming, and I'm ready for any questions or comments.
Oh, Amy, yes, go ahead. Amy has raised her hand. Yes, please.
Oh, thank you, John. So I had put it in the chat earlier. I was just wondering if anyone had seen or if you, Elena, had been familiar with any of these. It was said that I'm getting a text multiple times that says we have you in our records as not registered to vote. Check your registration status and register in 2 minutes. And there's a link. And I have not clicked the link because I'm not going to click the link. But I was having this conversation with, I live with my parents, multi-generational living. I feel like very common for us millennials. And I was going through the week of spams that I had gotten, and I'm showing her, this is a scam, this is a scam, this is a scam. And when we got to the voting one, we were both kind of like, is it a scam?
Yeah.
So I was just wondering if anyone had been familiar with that at all.
Well, I will say that it is, as I mentioned before, it is uncommon for government entities to text people with an urgency to go take action to do something, right? And right now, our political climate, it's begging for people to make sure that you're registered to vote, right? You want to be heard, you want to be counted. And so a scammer can totally bank on that right now to create that sense of urgency. And then you're going to go and click on the link. And you might put in your personal information. I mean, they ask, are you a citizen? Provide us your social security number. I'm not sure. I've never, like you, Amy, I don't click on stuff. I may do a Google search and I'll say like registered voting scam at the end, right? Text message. I'll add scam to the end of it to see what comes up, what we find. And so I have not heard of this, but it is something that my colleague is probably taking notes and something that we're going to take a look at. But it does not seem likely that a government entity would, be texting you to make sure that you are registered to vote.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And part of why I brought it up was because we had such a discussion about it amongst the generations in my family. My mom was like, oh yeah, the FedEx one, the Amazon one. That one, I had to convince her that it would not be worth clicking on that link if she got a similar text. Because to her, again, but it's official, but I have to vote, So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up again, Amy. I agree. I think that a lot of times we need to notice that, they're very timely, and with elections coming up, scams are going to evolve and change. And so definitely a good thing to be aware of. So thanks for pointing that out. We have another question in the chat from Jean. It said, before reporting scams, etc., do you need us to look it up on your site first to see if you already have it listed as a scam or phishing event?
Not at all. We want to hear from the community. We want to hear from the public. We want to know what's going on. And I know that a lot of people, well, they might have already heard this before. I don't even know if I should say anything. Please say something, because as you can see, things are being tracked. Numbers are being counted. We want to know what's happening, especially in our state of Washington. And it helps us so much when we go out and talk to the community and say, we just had a call yesterday. Someone gave us some information that it's continuing to happen. And so, yes, we definitely, please don't think that it would be a waste of time. You don't have to go and research it first. If you feel that it's a scam, call us, let us know, report it.
Indeed. Yeah, we all have lots of knowledge and experience in each of our generations, but I think, all of us are susceptible to these scams, and despite our vigilance, it's going to happen. So the more we can report, the better. So that's definitely great. Any other questions at this point? I know that Ryan had put in the chat that the presentation slides are going to be available. There's a number of other links that were put in there from Ryan and et cetera about further information to take this conversation further. But if there's any other questions, please let us know. We've got about 30 seconds maybe left at this point.
Did you want to do the poll, Ryan, which is so great?
Oh, sure, we can quickly do this poll. Relaunch. Clearing existing polls. Yeah, I don't. That is exactly what I want to do. Wanted to get a sense of who we serve and who we are as an audience here today. Take 30 seconds. It's 2 questions. It is not intimidating. I'm gonna give us another 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Well, Zillennials are. You have a point. The sub generations are a piece that, yeah. All right, this is us.
My sister says, do you know that I have been called an older millennial because she's from 82, so she's really close to Gen X. She has Gen X tendencies, but is a millennial. So they're called older millennials.
That is much better than geriatric millennials, which I have heard.
Yeah, elder. Yes, thank you, elder.
I'm a 93, so I'm almost a zillennial, the Z, except instead of a decennial. I don't know what the what the correct pronunciation is. It looks like we are mostly millennials and Gen Xers in this room, and we serve across the entire spectrum with maybe a little bit underrepresentative of service in the builders area.
Wow, that's
Very
awesome.
informative. Wonderful. Well, I appreciate everybody taking a little bit of time out of their lunch to come chat with us about how scammers target different generations. This has been always an informative conversation. So many questions and sparklers are going off in my head about the ways that my dad used to say, there are those who have and there are those who will get got. And the methods that he uses to protect himself are not always the methods that I have found to be as effective to protect myself. So always helpful to get a little bit of perspective on the different methods that we've all picked up. As John said, we have knowledge in amongst ourselves that we can share and build a strong wall of protection around our money.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, I do encourage everybody to take the poll, tell us your thoughts about today's workshop. And with that, I am going to stop recording. Hi, everybody on YouTube. See you next time.